Welcome to Louisiana Heartbeats. I'm Sudie Landry, your host, and today we have as a guest on our show Edward Reed, who's not only an author, but he also participated in a space program that you may remember some many years ago. Welcome to the show, Edward.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming with us and being on our show. Acadiana, as the president of the Writers Guild of Acadiana, I like to come in and showcase our authors once in a while. And Edward just spoke before our organization a few weeks back, and he has been out promoting his book. And his book is called I Remember When. So instead of me elaborating on anything, I'm just going to let him tell the story why it's called I Remember When. Where are you from, Edward, originally?
I'm from originally born and raised in a little town of Fenton, Louisiana, off of Highway 165 between Iowa and Kinder.
Okay, now did you always plan to become an author?
No, I did not. It happened because my children, knowing the experience that I had in my 8 decades of life, wanted me to expound that in a book form for their children and my great-grandchildren, and they stayed after me for several years till I finally gave in.
Well, I was excited about what you shared with us at the Writers Guild and some of the little details of some of the stories that were going to be and are in this book. But what caught my attention was the fact that you just slid over this most important fact. To you, it was like no big deal that you just happened to be part of some space program. Would you share with Acadiana that space program and some of the people you were associated with?
Well, it was a long road getting to that part of the book. But I did spend 22 plus years in the American space program through McDonnell Douglas. It was McDonnell Aircraft in progress to McDonnell Douglas Astronautics. And I was assigned, I was on an off-site program in New Mexico when my supervisor came by and said, "We're going to put a man in space and in orbit." And I asked him, "What's orbit?" And back in 55, 56, that was not a very commonly used word. And after some explanation, I was rather excited. Yeah, I said, "Love to do it." He said, "Well, be prepared to move your family from Alamogordo, New Mexico to eventually Cape Canaveral. It's Cape Kennedy now." And I did just that, and my children and my wife and I packed up and headed out, and we had to end up living in her sister's basement apartment, while we were in St. Louis, because it was temporary till we moved to Canaveral. And I was assigned to work on the very first boilerplate models of the manned Mercury space program, something that had never been attempted before in the history of flight. And so we got busy, and I was fortunate to be selected to work with the engineering department in those early phases. We went to a little site out in Virginia, Wallops Island, and we did some boilerplate launches there. And after some failures and some successes, we were able to determine that the escape system would get the pilot, we call him pilot, but the astronaut, off the booster in case of an explosion on the pad safely and recover him. That was our aim. Our aim has always been, no matter what the schedule, we would not do anything to advance the schedule that would prohibit protection of the pilot and his craft. We didn't want to just take a chance, so we were very careful. And as a result, that paid off because we never lost, through 2 generations of spacecraft, we never lost a pilot or a spacecraft. We lost one spacecraft after the mission was over with. That was Gus Grissom. He landed in very heavy seas, and the spacecraft bobbles around in the water, and it was rather rough. And one of the things they do is they remove their helmet, and right about here there's a plunger that is pinned. You pull the plunger, and you pull the pin and hit the plunger, and the explosive door blows off. It has 72 explosive frangible bolts that blow off the door to let the man out of the craft. Well, due to the high seas, the water started washing in, and he had his helmet off, which made the suit fill up with water also. So we almost lost him, but the helicopters grabbed him before he went under with the suit filling with water. And the spacecraft, two helicopters were unable to hold it. With the water weight, it began to draw them closer to the water, and we lost it. 38 years later, they recovered that spacecraft recently.
Wow.
But we went through 2 generations of spacecraft. Mercury, the 1-man spacecraft, and Gemini, the 2-man spacecraft. It had opening doors rather than the blowout door. And without losing a man or an animal, we flew some monkeys in front of the astronaut launches just to assure that the human systems would work to keep them alive.
I remember briefly something about that. And who were some of the astronauts that you were able to personally meet or work with briefly? Can you name them?
Yes, I was a supervisor back in the plant at the time, and I'm the kind of guy, I'm the first one in my department, and I'm the last to leave. That was just ingrained by my dad, his work ethics. And I did that to observe, not to sneak and peek, but to observe my employees coming to work, who would get there early and get their desk ready and get ready to work when it was time to go to work. And those who would go stand at the clock 10 minutes before clock out time in urgency to get out of the plant, and they should still be at their desks. And I used that as a point of evaluation. I had arranged an evaluation form so as to be fair with my employees that had 8 attributes: quantity of work, quality of work, knowledge of work, and ability, and whatnot. And those attributes were measured quarterly, and when the annual raises and advancements came, I used the data from that to choose fairly the employee that excelled. And that's how I handled my people. I tried to be honest and fairly about it. But this practice caused me to be in the cafeteria at about 7 o'clock in the morning, and I'm walking with my tray after paying for it to a table. And there was, at that time in the morning, there were very few people in the cafeteria, and there were 2 gentlemen sitting over there. And I had to walk right by them, and I was going to go sit down at a table by myself. And I heard one of them say, "Would you like to join us?" And I turned around, and when I did, I recognized, well, that was Gus Grissom. And I said, "Well, thank you, be very pleased to." And I set my tray down and had breakfast with he and Wally Schirra. And we had a lot of discussions about our service. They were in the service, of course, and we talked about our service. And that was my first encounter. At later points in time, I was assigned in the White Room, which is where they did the testing, where the astronaut would come into the White Room, and he would get into the spacecraft, and they would run functional tests, teach them how to handle different systems within the craft.
Okay.
And they would recognize me. I'd give them that, you know. We respected their position. They were there to learn a very critical thing that had never been done before. So we respected that and didn't go up and bother them, tried to talk with them and get too close. We gave them breathing room, and they highly, highly appreciated that. We were told so by them.
With that said, Edward, I can understand exactly and appreciate what you're saying, because even here at Acadiana Open Channel, it's amazing to see some of the Hall of Famers come in that I find out that they are Hall of Famers after they have left, because I didn't realize so much talent that's had been recognized all over the world is right here in our backyard, kind of like you. So by giving these people, you know, that freedom and not having to sign autographs and all this kind of stuff, they're human, they're down, and they're with us, and we're enjoying the company. And with you, that right there, you know, just made it more welcomed that you respected, you didn't interfere with their job. Well, that is wonderful, and part of that's in your book also, isn't it? The story of your part with the space program. You kind of share that a little bit in the book also? I'm asking.
Yes, I do share all of that in the book.
Okay.
And many more details getting to there. Really, I I wrote the book for young people.
That's what I want to bring up.
And young college people and young high school children. I met many of them that knew very little about our country, and it's not their fault. It's just that as time goes on, the past begins to lose itself. And the new things that go on in the present are the things that they concentrate on, and rightly so, and I understand that. But I felt a need to get that across to my children and my grandchildren. I started with them, and when I saw their eyes light up and saw how interested they were, and told them about when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, learning to drive a tractor in the rice field, and the tractor was rather new then, because a few years earlier they were cutting rice by sickles, hand sickles. But I was fortunate enough to have a farmer who was interested in me.
Switch over to the book. That's what he's talking about. And
he made sure that I learned to drive a truck, learned to drive a tractor at the age of 11 years old. And in those days, we lived off the land because it was the middle of the Great Depression. I was born in 1929, and through 29 to about 47, we were in a depressed state in this country. And people literally lived off the land. Everybody had gardens. I would go to the bayou and fish every Thursday for my mother's Friday fish because she was Catholic. And we always ate fish on Friday as a form of penance for our belief and our appreciation for the Lord giving His life for us. And we had to barter because money was just not readily available. So we would pay our doctor when we did go to a doctor with a chicken and maybe a dozen eggs. And we might want some pork, and somebody was butchering in the neighborhood. Everybody knew when everybody was butchering, and we would trade off some pork for a couple chickens or a duck, and that kind of thing. So people did a lot of exchange bartering.
I want to go back. Acadiana, what it is that I had wanted Edward to share with us some of his background, but this book is written, and it's a timely topic, that it talks about the way things used to be, how, different stories in his book reminds a lot of us of the times maybe that we lived in. And when things got really rough, there was always a way to barter with each other. I have done that. And so it's really interesting because of the fact that your book has so many different little stories inside of it. And it's going to trigger a lot of people to remember their childhood. It's going to educate the young people today that would say, wow, or they'll remember stories maybe their grandparents have told them also. So your children were really so intrigued by some of the stories, obviously, that you told, that your family got behind you and said you needed to write a book.
That's exactly right.
Well, tell us just who pushed you and how did you go about getting this book published?
Well, I went to I have a son that was working in the Virgin Islands in St. Croix, Christiansted, St. Croix, and he had rented a very nice home, and it was palatial, and it sat on top of a mountain. I could look out one side, it had a swimming pool and a bay. And I could look out the other side and see the boat docks and the downtown city in the water, what was going on in the water. So it was very, very beautiful, very quiet, and I was able to assemble my notes and revise them and make changes and additions and whatnot to compile a stack of sheets that high, manuscript sheets that high. And as you can see, my book is about that thick because I I let it happen as I thought about it and wrote it like I thought about it. And after the people that do those kinds of things edited the book, they said, you can't put this in there too political, you can't put this in there, you'll get sued, you can't do this, you can't do that.
You learned a whole lot, huh?
Yes, and so I began to realize, well, I could have written it differently without all that junk in there. And so I actually rewrote my manuscript and narrowed it down to what I really wanted to do. First person story like I'm talking to you.
Right.
And go from subject to subject. In 3 pages we might be talking about the bordering thing.
Right.
And the next 3 pages, 4 pages, 5 pages we'll be talking about a totally different thing. So the book doesn't get boring, and I've been told that so many people who have read it have told me it certainly is not a boring book because you go from story to story. It's 100 stories inside one book. But and I tried not to make it about me. I tried to make it about the lifestyle we lived during those 8 decades and keep it within 10 decades per area. I tried to think of what happened in the 30s, then what happened in the 40s, and the hippie age in the 60s and that. So anybody that's 50 years or younger would really appreciate this book because it'll bring thoughts, and I know that for a fact because my readers have already expounded on that. It'll bring back memories that they had similar to that and how much they appreciated those memories coming back by reading my book. And I tried to be very fair about it. I'm a very patriotic person. I work very, very hard at trying to get the proper people elected. I don't allow politics or religion to interfere with my friendships. I have friends that are Democrats, Republicans, Dixiecrats, you name them, but they're my friends
That's
first.
right.
And
That's right.
I do not allow my religion or my politics to get involved in my friendships, and it has paid off dividends for me. I have lots of friends.
I do too, and I think you just hit on why, because it's called unconditional love. You just a friend.
Yes.
A friend is a friend.
A friend is a friend.
Flaws or not.
Amen.
Still a friend, right? Well, you know what? I met you at the Writers Guild. In fact, actually, correct me. I think you showed up at an event. You weren't even a member then.
That's right.
And you came for that one event. And from there, bam, the next thing we know, you've already got your book published. And then you asked for just a few minutes that night at the organization to slightly mention what your book was about. And it turned into everybody wanted to hear the rest of your story.
Yes.
And now, from there, all of a sudden, you had a book signing at the same location. And where was that?
That was at Barnes & Noble, and I believe that Barnes & Noble will carry my book nationwide. And the publisher, Tate Publishing, has a site that you could go to and purchase the book. And of course, I have a trunk load full of books.
Well, the whole thing is, if anybody's interested in being in your book and getting more information, they can also check out your website. I mean, your email that's also posted up there while you're talking.
I also have a website, book website.
Okay, and that is www. We didn't put it up there.
I have to beg off on that. I didn't.
That's good because I didn't put it up there for the reason that
Right.
we weren't going to promote just that
Right.
that site. So if anyone's interested in finding out where you're going to be and your book signing events in the future, they can send you an email and request that information, and you'll get back with them.
Thank you. I'll
That sounds
certainly
good.
do that because I am planning several.
Well, let's talk about that, and let's not talk about prices or anything like that because we are a free access station, so therefore we can tell people where you're going to be and invite them to come out, and from there they can get their information. So you've done a book signing at Barnes & Noble. Have you got one planned anytime soon?
Yes, not real soon. I'm in the planning function now.
Okay.
You have to contact the people and they have to contact other people,
I
and
know.
it's a very slow process getting in there. Then you have to advertise in order not to sit at the table like some of the, I felt so
Right.
bad for some of the authors the other night. I had a line of people at my table, and they had an occasional person at theirs, and they had good books. I went in the day before, and I browsed each of their books, and all the books up there were good books.
Right.
And
Well, you know what, interjecting something, Edward, the best PR person is going to be the author of the book. It's going to take a lot of legwork. It's going to take a lot of faithfulness in getting out there and sharing with people what and how much, what's going on with your book, where it's going to be located, telling people about it, And so therefore, it's up to you, the author, to go through any door that may open for you. But then there's also a lot of things, and you're a first-time author, correct? And did you use a publishing company, or did you self-publish yourself?
no, I had my entire manuscript completed, ready for publishing. I made one error. I didn't get a professional editor to take my notes, and as a result, I have a few minor errors that I know they're in there. A lot of readers will read right past them, but I would urge anybody writing a book to hire a professional editor. Don't take it on yourself to get every dot and every I correct and that kind of thing. It's quite a job, but it is a fulfilling job in that it really reinvigorated my life by having gone through my life and gone through some of the things that it brought back, memories it brought back. If I have time, I'd like to tell you one quickie story.
Okay, well, let me just say that we have about maybe 6 minutes left, so we
Okay.
have time.
Very much. Okay, my wife was pregnant with our third child. His name was Todd Edward Reed. I named him, his second name after me. My oldest son, Guy, and my daughter, Kim, she lives in Atlanta, he lives in the islands, and were there, but they were children, and we were at Cape Canaveral, right outside the gate of the Cape. We lived in a little trailer park home. There must have been 2,500 people that lived around that area now. Now it's hundreds of thousands. And there was only two highways across the two rivers back to land from the shore, and she was pregnant. So having had two children, we were old hands at birthing children. We just lollygogged along. She had a pain, and I said, "Well, do you think we ought to go?" Not yet. And after a while, I got a little nervous as being a dad and watching my wife having these pains occasionally, and I'd heard enough about that to know that maybe we ought to be on the way to the hospital. So we got lollygogged over to the neighbors and asked them would they take care of the children for a few hours, and we got in the car and hit the highway, and when we got to the causeway, there were two rivers to go over, and they have these bridges that open, and when you know it, one of the bridges opened, and she was having a pain, and I began to get scared. And I'm looking over there, and she looked at me with a horrible look on her face, but I'm sure to give me courage, she smiled, smiled while she was hurting.
Trying.
And finally the gate opened, and just about that time they started closing again. A big yacht was coming through, and I'm chewing my nails, and she's having pains, and this bridge is still up. Finally it goes down. We go through, and I'm rather speeding, and I clipped into that parking lot, burning rubber, like I was at one of the NASCAR races, and walked up to the desk slowly but with big steps. We wanted to look calm. I don't know why we were doing that, but we didn't want anybody to think we weren't old-time birthers. We knew what we were doing. While she was taking the information from me, my wife had a horrendous pain. Boy, she pushed the button, and a light flashed, and pretty soon they came running through the doors with one of these movable beds and stethoscopes flying, and they laid her in that, and off she went. Finally, the lady says, that'll be $500. Well, I left my checkbook.
What?
Anyway, I had to go back and come back and pay for that. When I came back, the baby had already been delivered. That's how close it was.
That was fast. Well, you know what? We're getting to the end of the show. Do you have any other books that you plan on publishing?
I have one that I'm hesitant to write, and I've already started a few pages on it, collecting the data. There's a lot of data involved in that kind of a book, and in order to be accurate and fair. And because it's political, I'm finding that I'm going to probably say things in it that a lot of my
It's
friends
going to be on a
would
totally
not.
different topic.
So
then.
I'm having second thoughts of doing that. I'm not the hardcore guy that's going to do something where it hurts
Well, it's
somebody.
in the process. It's in the process. Well, I'm going to go ahead and close the show out. And I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been interesting. We want to remind Acadiana that the book, I'll Remember When, is out, and it's also about different things that happened in the past. Edward Reed has been our guest today, and he's been sharing some of the things that he remembers when. He also shared about being in the space program also. But that's not what the book is really about. It just kind of led up to some of the wonderful stories that he and his family remember. Tune in every Tuesday night at 9 o'clock on this channel, and you may see Edward Reed, the author, or myself just talking to you, or maybe you. Thank you for watching.